This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, where we spread awareness for men's mental health and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. New episodes drop weekly.
Lord, I thank you for this opportunity again, just to have this platform and to meet so many amazing men and to have the opportunity not only to spread your gospel, Lord, but to help people with their mental health, to show them that men that have done so many tremendous things in the world, that have served their country at the highest level, can just talk about mental health, how important it is to be resilient, how important it is to have discipline, and also to be aware of what their identity really is and not just in a uniform or a warfare device. Thank you again for this opportunity, Lord. I pray you'll be in this episode, that you will bless both of us, that you will lead me and guide me through your Holy Spirit, and I pray that I will do your will. It's in your name that I pray. Amen.
That's nice, Steve. What a nice way to start a conversation.
Thank you very much.
That's
Tonight
nice.
I am joined by a very special guest. He's a retired Navy SEAL that also spent time in DevGru, also known as SEAL Team 6. He's a decorated combat veteran, New York Times bestselling author, world-class endurance athlete, and creator of some of the most brutal endurance and survival events ever designed. From combat to survival, leadership, discipline, resilience, and suffering with purpose, this conversation is going to go deep tonight. Without further delay, the man, the myth, the legend, Don Mann himself. Welcome to the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, brother.
Steve, it's a pleasure to be here on the show with you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. And I'm gonna quit saying sir. Sorry about that. But
That's so.
I am so glad that we made this happen, because we talked several months ago, and shout out to Damien and Mike, and we're just really building this cool network of guys, and it's an honor to sit down with you tonight.
Thanks. I feel the same. Thank you.
Well, yeah. And so, Don, I'd like to start off just kind of from the beginning. Can you tell us where you grew up and kind of give us a snapshot of what, childhood looked like? Were you athletic? Did you play sports? And then we'll kind of move into you joining the Navy.
Well, I grew up in New England, in New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and all the New England states. We moved around a lot. My father was God, country, family, and he impressed that upon us, that in that order, that's the way it is. God's most important, God, country, and then family. And he was from the greatest generation. And as a young boy, I'd get these messages from my father without even realizing it. By the time I was a teenager, I knew it was time to go defend our country and to do anything for God, country, family. And so we moved around a bit in New England. And I start off saying that, it might make it sound like I was a good kid, and I wasn't. I was not at all, actually. I just loved excitement and adventure and going out and living for the day. And like tomorrow might never come. And that's how we lived in the SEAL teams as well. And so I felt right at home when I got in the SEAL teams. But I just liked adventure and athleticism as far as pushing myself. And I played organized sports and all, but as from a young boy, 4th grade on, I just go walk out in the woods as far as I could and try to find my way home, or sneak out in the middle of the night and do the same thing just by myself. And I liked motorcycles. I liked jumping over high jumps and being chased by the police and all that. So I just liked the adventure side of it. So when I finally figured out it was time to join the military, I was going to join the Marines. And then I went to the Navy too, because back then the SEALs weren't really known. There wasn't not much known about the Navy SEALs.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the Navy recruiter, and he showed me Men with Green Faces, a very famous recruiting movie on the SEAL teams. And that moment changed my life, because at that moment I knew there was nothing else in this world that mattered to me except for being a SEAL. And it was just guys working out and pushing themselves and swimming and running, pull-ups and push-ups and shooting and diving and scuba diving. That moment changed my whole life, and I'm so grateful that happened. And I did 21 years in the Navy, SEAL Team 1, 2, and 6. And I spent 4 years down in Central South America during the counter-narcotic years there. And then got out and went to the work with the CIA for 25 years as a contractor.
Wow.
But I had a kind of a career that was professional. And at the same time, I had a sports career that was going on since I was basically a teenager. And that was just my desire to push myself went into marathons and double marathons and Ironmans and double Ironmans and up to 500, 600-mile adventure races. I was always going after the biggest race in the world to compete in. And the last big thing I did was climbing Everest, where I got hurt. But I didn't make it to the top, but I found other things to do instead. And then those years or decades of pushing hard, taking the SEAL team years, the CIA years, and those 40 years of athletic, hardcore athletic years, then I started writing about those things. And now I'm hosting 3 TV shows promoting fitness, challenging, pushing yourself, military techniques that can help civilians, things like that. So I've enjoyed everything, and I hope to keep going for quite a while.
Well, I want to back you up just a bit real fast. What year did you join the Navy?
1977.
Okay. And my second question before we get back into the team life, where does this inner desire come from, Don? Like to push yourself to the absolute limit? Because most people hear Navy SEAL, right? And then they stop right there. But then you went to 6, and the time you were in 6, that was a time, and correct me if I'm wrong, most people didn't even know who you guys were.
No.
And yeah, and we talked about my father earlier before we got on the air. So back then, people didn't really know much about you guys. And then you go from 6 to still working, but now you're competing in these extreme endurance events. So where does that where does that come from?
And I was doing the extreme endurance events before I was a SEAL, and I don't know really where it came from. My parents, I think, thought there was something wrong with me because I'd hear him talking. He's getting worse. He's getting worse. But I don't know where it came from. I'm just glad it came to me somehow.
Mhm.
My parents or my family, there wasn't anybody in my family who liked doing that as much as I did.
Yeah.
But I don't really know where it came from. I think from a young boy, from 7th grade, I remember the moment my mother asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I couldn't decide if it was going to be something to do with music or something to do with sports, because those were my 2 passions, and they
Mhm.
still are. And I decided, well, I don't have any musical talent. I like listening to it. With sports, I could do that for the rest of my life. So I asked for a set of weights, and I just never looked back. It's always been fitness from that point on.
Do you think obviously being such a endurance athlete before you joined the Navy, did that make it a lot easier for you going through buds and then eventually going through green team for 6? Did that really help you kind of, because you had that foundation obviously with that athletic background? Do you think that was an advantage for you?
I do think so. And because, doing an Ironman, it's a 12-hour workout, 11-hour workout, whatever. And there aren't really 11-hour workouts in the teams unless you're going through Hell Week or something like that.
Right, right.
So, and my workouts, I really went overboard with them, but I would start my workouts on a Friday after work, and I'd work out till Monday morning without a break. And I believed in pushing myself hard, and I didn't want to leave anything back home on the table. So I would push myself to either bleeding, passing out, or hallucinating. And then I knew I gave it my all. And what happened is I came up with this theory where we have this line, an imaginary line, that if you overdo something in life and you cross that line, and if it's sports or if it's playing the piano or if it's cooking, whatever it is, if you go over that line, something's going to give. And it might be you're giving too much to your job, so your family might start being affected. And for me, I was given too much to working out, and my liver and kidneys shut down, and I almost killed myself twice from overdoing it. And so I always believed that if you didn't go over the line, you were leaving something behind.
Mhm.
So climbing mountains and doing the 10-day, 500-mile, 600-mile adventure races, I would train for 2 or 3 days to prepare for a 10-day nonstop race. And back then, we had 3 time the distance rule. So if you're training for like just a marathon and it's 26.2-mile race, we try to run a baseline of 70 plus miles a week, 3 times
Right.
the distance. So if you're doing an Ironman, 2.4, 112 bike and 26.2 run, you're trying to swim, 2.4 miles swimming times 3, it's 7.5 miles of swimming a week, and 112 miles on the bike, it's 336 miles a week of riding, and then 70 plus miles of running. And I was a SEAL doing all the SEAL activity. So I really had to, on weekends, I just put it on overdrive and started working out on Friday afternoon and finishing Monday mornings. But I learned the hard way after decades of doing that,
Yeah.
um, that we do have a line, and there is,
Right.
you overdo it, it's too much. And you can develop problems with the family, with your health, with your work, everything can go wrong. Now I believe, let's identify that line, come up and touch it, and then back off. Regroup, surge up, get your power back, and go back after that line again. Not to give up, but don't go over it and don't cause problems in your health or in your life by pursuing a goal too rigorously.
Were you the honor man in your buzz class?
I was not, no.
Really? I'm shocked.
Well, thanks for saying that. And
No,
I
I'm
feel,
shocked, dude. I thought you'd say yes.
and I feel bad about what I'm going to say, but I became very good friends with one of our buds instructors. And he said one class, there's an officer who's on a man, next is enlisted, next is officer. And I was enlisted. We had an officer picked, and he said, you were in the running for the enlisted. So I don't know if I've never even said that out loud, actually, but I always think about it.
I mean, that's hard to believe just because I remember, in high school. So I graduated high school in 97. I remember Scott Helveston, seeing him on TV, and he was a huge endurance guy. And, people back then in the 90s, they kind of associated a lot of SEALs with endurance events. And I actually got into marathon running to prepare for buds because I thought I need to be a marathon runner. So I was just curious because that jumped out at me when I hear you talk and how, good a shape you're in and how hard you're training. It's like, damn, he had to have been because it just sounded like it. But I
You know,
wasn't trying to stir up any old wounds there, but it sounded like it.
oh, well, Scotty and I, we were going to go to the Himalayas together for this
Wow.
race called the Raid Galwar across Nepal, Tibet, and northern India. And he got hurt up there when we were there. And he came back in a Gambu bag, an oxygen bag. He got altitude sickness. And then, of course, you know what happened at the end for Scotty. He
Yeah.
was such a great man.
That was really unfortunate. I remember seeing that on the news. That was really sad.
Yeah.
Well, so I wanted to ask you too. You mentioned your kidneys and your liver. Did you get rhabdo from all the training you were doing?
I've had rhabdo. I've had it.
I figured you did.
And it's funny. You can almost smell when like when I also put on a lot of these races,
Right,
these
right.
toughest races in the country. And every now and then people would leave T-shirts behind or something. You can smell it in them. And you can smell it when it's happening to you. And I weigh 185 now. I'm pretty lean. I feel healthy, but I've gone below 140.
Okay.
And what would happen is if you just keep going and keep going and keep going, and you can't eat enough to keep going.
Yeah.
And so your glucose is done, everything, your fats are worn, they're all gone. So your muscles start breaking down and used as energy. And it's got a terrible smell to it. But that's the smell that we smell like every week. And yeah, so it happened all the time. It's not good.
No, it's not. It's not. I ran a CrossFit gym for a few years, and we had a couple members get rhabdo, and I don't remember the smell, but I remember people going down with it. But yeah, I had to ask you that because just hearing you talk, I assumed that was probably what had happened to you. Well, Don, let me ask you this because I like to bring this into each episode. Growing up, you had it sounded like you had an all-American family, very patriotic, love your country. Was faith a big part of your upbringing?
It was. My father actually wanted to be a minister when he retired, and he taught Sunday school. We went to church every week, and my mother got sick, and she coughed a lot, so she couldn't go to church with us after a while. But she said, you don't need to go to church. You can have your own faith. You can be spiritual. You can pray inside. and she had to because she didn't want to be in church and coughing a lot. And my father said, "No, no, no, you got to go to church, despite support your church, support your community." So both sides, faith was a big, big part of me. After my mother got sick, it went for her internal faith. She did it internally, but yeah, and it still is. It still is a big part of me. Actually, I just realized this probably about 15 years ago. Whenever I go on my long runs, and you probably know this as a marathon runner when you train for your marathon, um, when I go on long anything, bike rides, runs, paddles, or swim, I don't really daydream so much. I pray. And I used to pray just when I saw water. Whenever I'd see water, I'd say, okay, this is my time to pray. Yeah, I know I normally pray and give thanks and actually pray for family and friends who need extra prayers at the time. But I'd say in a typical day, my prayers probably 3 or 5 times a day. As soon as I wake up, um, yeah, I am definitely have always been faithful in that way.
That's very cool to hear that. And yeah, especially with you pushing the limits like that. What about I already probably know the answer to this question, but like for those people that are watching that don't really understand what type of unit SEAL Team 6 is, especially back when you were in that unit, kind of in the beginning stages of it, where did faith play a role in that? Because some of the operation, and I'm not going to ask any sensitive questions, but when you were doing, you're top of the food chain, man. I mean, you're tip of the spear in that unit. And was faith a big? Did it play a big role during that time of your life too, where you're in harm's way on a regular basis?
Well, if you don't mind me saying, and I won't speak out of turn, but your dad was our brother. I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, and I would say his job was every bit, if not a lot more dangerous than ours. But it was funny in the teams, I did notice there were more very faithful people in the teams than anywhere else I've ever seen in my life. And then when I retired and got out, guys who didn't seem as the believers, the faithful ones that seemed at the time I was serving with them, now they are all the more so. The most religious, most faithful people I know are SEALs
Hmm.
now,
Interesting.
and not always. They weren't always that way. But what I think, Steve, I think you come out of it in one piece, and you're just so grateful and
Hmm.
you're so thankful that you made it. And I think no matter who you are, but by the time, there's some time in some life you're going to say, my God, thank you. Somebody was guarding over me. And even if you didn't think about it when you were younger, just rolling the dice and going for it. And
Hmm.
some guys were like that and they didn't think about faith. But I think a lot of those guys turned and thought a lot about faith at some point in their life. And after they're retired, I'd say most of them do.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason I ask you that, Don, and it's more of a personal thing for me. One of my biggest regrets in life is I didn't put God in my career. When I got my packet, I got my orders for buds. I saw it as my opportunity, and I did not pray. And I grew up in the church. My dad, growing up, I mean, we were in church every Sunday, and he was like the squared away dude in his unit. He didn't party. He didn't get crazy. He's a great man. But so when I got my contract and got my orders, I saw it as like this is Steve's opportunity. Like this is what I've always wanted, and God had other plans for me, but I did not. I did not put him at the foundation. And so I like to ask veterans when they come on the show, especially if they're believers, like where their faith was. Did that have a decision, or did that help make your, impact your decision when you joined the military? Because for me, I'm ashamed to say, man, it for me it didn't. And I knew better. I grew up in it. I knew better. I had a foundation in church, but I was in a prideful state where I saw it as what's Steve going to get from this? And God was like, no, not for you, my friend. We got other plans for you. But and I've grown a lot from that. I mean, I've grown a lot. And it's, I was just curious. I like to ask that question.
I think maybe those other plans might be something you or I, just as simple human beings, won't ever understand. But maybe they were to protect you from harm's way, so that you can be helping other people in the way that you do now. Because there's so many ways to serve, right? It's not
Hmm.
just military, not just the teams. You
Yeah.
serve by doing what you do now. And I mean, we started this conversation with a prayer, and your influence and the way you speak to people and what you talk about, it helps a lot of people. And you maybe help. Actually, now in my older years, I think helping people is the most important thing there is to do in this world.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe you're just meant to be helping people.
Yeah, and the 46-year-old version that you're talking to right now agrees with you. When I was 26,
No,
I
yeah.
was like, whatever, like,
You're
no,
talking to
but
a wall.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I understand why I went through some of the trials I did to get to where I'm very grateful to be able to meet men like yourself and to share your story and to help others. And I agree with you. I think life is about helping others and being an asset, not a liability. And unfortunately, when I was 26, I was a liability. I was all about myself. And but I understand that now. I didn't at the time, but so yeah, I just wanted to pick your brain about faith and being in that role. And I mean, let's just be honest, Don, when I was growing up, I mean, I idolized the SEAL teams. I mean, reading Rogue Warrior and Red Cell, and I was going to ask you in a little bit about the movie Navy SEALs because I know you were consulting on that. I mean, I watched that movie. I was all about it, man. I was like, eat, sleep, breathe. And I had a pull-up bar in my room with a dip station and a push-up station. I had all the standards for buds when I was in high school, and I would just rep out pull-ups and push-ups, and that's all I thought about, man. That's all I wanted to do. So, but I am very, very comfortable with the role I have now, and I understand it. Not 100%, but I do think God had other plans for me. But it is an absolute honor, though, to talk to a man that served in that unit, and it's just cool for me to be able to share the same space with you and to get to talk to you and pick your brain.
Thanks, Steve. Today I saw a picture of a young guy who just got his trident, and he looked about 20, and he's standing there with his mother. And I was thinking, he's not going to look like that much longer,
Yeah.
because I know you know this from your dad and your family, but the teams, there's so much good that we could both talk a lot about, but it does suck a life away from people too. And I mean, I have a lot of my teammates, the ones that I served with, two of them are living in cars right now. They can't be around people. One, when they go to the VA, he has to stand up against a wall because he doesn't want a frag to come through the window, or sniper fire. And another one's afraid of the door being blown open. And these are guys I served with. And I say it that way because, yeah, we were busy, but nothing like after 9/11.
Hmm.
9/11, the military just in whole was so much busier. So, and it does do a way of damaging the soul.
Hmm.
It really does, because I can't tell you. I mean, I have one friend in the teams who's been married 7 times. You say you're a family man. I mean, in the teams, you say, yeah, I'm a family man.
Hmm.
But then you're willing to go away 300 days a year in harm's way. I mean, what's that for the family? But when you're young, that's all you want to do. And it's, of
Yeah.
course, I'm going to do it. I'm doing it for my family, keeping my country safe and all that. You think kind of differently. But in the big picture, uh, team guys in the military in general, but I'll say specifically in the teams and in our 160 brothers, they give everything because that's how they're meant to be, to give everything. But then you see them a few years later and they've aged. And then you see them after 20 years and they are beat up and really aged, because I don't know anybody who lives a harder life than the guys in the teams and spec ops community in general right now.
Hmm.
I mean, they're back to back to back war. You talk to guys who came in after 9/11, retired 20 years later, and maybe their whole adult life they've been at war. And during that war, they've seen their friends and best friends killed and wounded. And what does that do to a psyche? I mean, we had World War II, 4 to 5 years, right? We had Vietnam, that's 10 years, Korea, 3 years, but we've never been at war for 20 years. And there's guys with 16, 17, 18 deployments. And that's what they know. And then that rattles a person, right? And I'm so grateful we have people like that. but it's not all good for a person. It's also harmful in what it does to that person and that person's family and that
Yeah.
person's children. Um, I worked with SEAL kids for quite a while, and
Nice.
those were all kids whose parents were affiliated with Naval Special Warfare. Usually, the fathers were in the SEALs or the Special Boat Units, and so many of these kids were damaged because, well, they talk to their father on Zoom calls, and they see him a few times a year, and the father's always gone, and the mother's trying to run a household together. It's tough, and I don't want to sound pessimistic or be a Debbie Downer or anything, but I think it's only going to get tougher right now,
Yeah.
the way it's looking. I think
Yeah.
comes into it for that reason. Now we have to call more in on faith and hopefully have more faith in the troops and good leadership and good training and a mission, a specific mission where they can believe in it wholeheartedly that they're going to war for maybe God, country, family did back in, the greatest generation. But something I think has to change. And I think faith is one of those things that could be boosted up in this country and leadership and training. And, we got these kids who are too fat to join the military. I mean, a third of them can't join the military.
Yeah.
We got to get them working out and trained, and
Yeah.
we got to tighten up.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing too I like to address is identity, because I feel like some men get wrapped up in their identity being time in service, or if they're a police officer or a firefighter, and they don't have a solid foundation of who they really are as a man, whether it's a believer in Jesus, or as a husband, or as a father. So, Don, I wanted to ask you, when you and I know you went into the CIA after the SEAL team, so it may not have been as hard of a transition, but when you came off of active duty, did you struggle with your identity because you're no longer, an active duty SEAL, or were you comfortable enough to say, okay, I did my thing and now I'm going into the next chapter because I am a believer. I know my identity is in Christ, not necessarily just in the bird on my chest.
Right. What a great question. I was fortunate in my life. What happened when I left the teams and when the wars just started, and a year and a half after I got out, but CIA was the perfect filler for the operational side of the teams, and the physical side of it I got through my sports. So I missed the camaraderie of the teams. And of course, you always see them overseas when you're in the Middle East and places like that. You're always with the team guys, and I stay in touch with so many of them still. And in the sports world, the long distance endurance extreme sports, you bump into team guys doing that too. But I didn't ever take that deep step away from the teams where life was, now I'm a civilian and going to work at the store or something. That
Yeah.
didn't happen. I just was very fortunate enough to have the hobbies I had and to be connected right with the agency as soon as I got out.
Well, I know Eddie Penny has mentioned before, talking about having a foundation in Christ has helped, and he kind of had to go through his own period and own struggles to get to that point. But it's helped him with things like PTSD and no longer being, in the teams. And so I was just curious, kind of what your take was on that, because I know for me, when I left law enforcement, I struggled because when I was no longer a police officer, those guys I was friends with, we didn't stay friends because I wasn't a cop anymore. And it's a little different than the military, but so I kind of had to find myself again, for lack of better words. And so once I finally got back into church, got back into my faith, I finally realized, okay, I'm God's child. He's not going to throw a lightning bolt at me if I screw up, because there's grace. And now I have my identity rooted in him. But it took me a long time, my friend, to figure that out. About 42 years old is when I figured that out. So it took a while. And I was just curious. I wanted to hear your take on it with your
Well, I
background and
think,
stuff.
you're in your early 40s. I think maybe the boy you were when you were 10 and the young man you're at 20 was the person you are now. And you grow up, you get the shield, you get your weapon, and that really enhances an identity.
Hmm.
and then you retire or leave, the weapon goes away, the shield goes away, but you're still that same person who wanted to do that, who did that, and then you move on to another chapter. With us, I know what you're saying. I really do, because you get that trident on your chest. It's probably one of the proudest days of any of our lives. You get that trident pinned on your chest, and then when you retire, you're not wearing a uniform anymore, and nobody wants to keep hearing, "Oh, I was a SEAL, I did this. I was a SEAL, I did that." You can't just rest on those laurels. You really have to now take the next step and do something else. Use that background, use the shield or the trident as a stepping stone to something else. And the guys who don't do that and they get stuck, and I'm talking about the team guys now, and I'm thinking of so many of them who do that. They can't take the next step. The next step is just not exciting enough. It's not for them. They can't deal with the civilians because they're so different. And they get stuck in the world they were in, but they're not even in that world anymore. They're in this like hybrid world of a ex-Navy SEAL or a former Navy SEAL or retired Navy SEAL that's not ready to do something else. And they don't live long, and they're not happy, and they're not healthy, and they drink a lot or do drugs and commit suicide. It's really, really a terrible place to be, I think. And so, and I didn't purposely plan my journey the way I did it. It does come to do with praying a lot, but I can't even say I prayed for the direction. It was presented to me and I knew it was the thing to do. So I think mine, I was kind of fortunate with mine, but I have so many friends who are stuck in that middle space. They can't leave. They were a team guy. They were a great team guy. And now they're, in their view, nobody. It's a terrible place to see them to be.
Well, and I think the great thing about, you coming on and talking about your faith for those young men out there, maybe that are still in high school or right out of school, and they're looking at joining the Navy, going to buds or going in the Army, and they hear men like you talk about faith and about having those, that foundation, those roots. I think that helps, man, because it kind of shows them, hey, Don Mann did all this, does all this still, and he believes in God. So maybe I should too. And if they're not because I know growing up, we all have our own versions of what church was like. If there was church hurt, I've experienced that. So I think it's good to see men like yourself, Don, that come on that have this incredible resume, but you believe in God. We're not just talking about the high speed stuff and the sexy missions. We're actually talking about faith and the foundation in Christ. And I think that's really important. I think this world needs that more now than ever, man.
I agree, Stephen. And maybe of the 500 or so SEALs I've worked with or trained with or worked alongside with, out of those 500, maybe a couple of them were non-believers. And I do think if you're going to put your life on the line, like doing these things, 30,000-foot jumps and shooting and going in harm's way and doing all these things, I can't even imagine anyone doing it without having faith.
Yeah.
I really can't. I mean, that is rolling the dice, and it's basically jumping out of a plane without a chute, thinking, okay, something's going to save me. But again, I don't want to sound like broken record. Most faithful, hardest core believers I've ever known are in the SEALs or former SEALs.
That's really cool to hear that, man. Let's talk a little bit about your other activities. Like, can we talk about some of the movies that you've helped with and kind of been correspondent on?
Well, the Navy SEAL movie, the one you watched in high school all the time.
Yeah, awesome movie, man.
I just did the medical script for that.
Okay.
And it was the medical part, and Charlie Sheen was in that movie.
Yeah, oh yeah. Hawkins.
Yeah.
He was an officer too, man.
Yeah, that wasn't good casting there.
I don't know. I was an OCS guy, man, so I liked it. But there's some big name dudes in that movie, though.
Yep. And then Demi Moore did a Navy SEAL movie.
Oh yeah, that's right, G.I. Jane. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a roommate, and I wasn't married. I had a roommate, and she's a female, and she was watching that. I go, "What are you watching that for in this house? You can't watch that in this house," you know, because back then there was no discussion at all about
Yeah.
females being in the
Yeah.
teams. I know that's different now.
Yeah.
And right now, there's a movie coming out. It's on Pablo Escobar,
Mhm.
and it's about capturing him. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of Delta guys in
Yep.
that, and CIA and DEA, and I'm the military consultant for that
Nice.
and executive producer.
Very cool.
Then for TV shows, the host of Surviving Man All Stars, and The Mission and Face Off. There are 4 TV shows, but they're all under the same producer and director. But it's basically SEAL training, law enforcement training. We have them desert trekking, desert navigation, long swims, diving, swimming with sharks, doing ship attacks, shooting all types of weapons. We capture them, and then we do a mission. And this last mission we did, wow, it was we had 3 women who were caught up into the sex trafficking trade,
Wow.
and one of them stood up. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, just a nice, classy lady, and she's probably in her mid-40s or so, and she said, "Well, I'm here because I'm trying to get my identity back, because when I was 12 years old, my mother made me prostitute myself, and she sold me, and she did that, and I did that for her and my sister, so to support their drug habits. And so I did that for all my life. And so I always felt that I had something to sell, and so I was valuable, but that's the only value I placed in my life. And so I had to take care of my mother and sister by selling myself. So we had 3 women at the last show who came through that lifestyle. And I tell you, you look at people who had a hard life, and then they all bounced back and became incredibly, they were gifted human beings to begin with, but became so successful in what they did. And then our mission at the end of that show was to go rescue some girls who were taken in a human sex trafficking group, and they went and rescued these people. But so we get to work with, Ken Shamrock, the most dangerous man in the
Nice.
world,
Yeah.
and talk about a Christian.
Love that dude, man. He's awesome.
There's not a stronger Christian you'll ever meet. I mean,
Wow.
he is so godly, and he taught. I mean, his lifestyle. He was his mother dropped him off at the orphanage. His father, he never knew his father, and then he was dropped off the orphanage, put in reform school after reform school after reform school. Is beat up all the time. Grew up a little bit, went to jail a number of times, but the person who ran the orphanage, his last name was Shamrock, and Ken adopted that last name. And there was a young girl who was at the orphanage, just a young girl like Ken was. And this Mr. Shamrock taught Ken how to play sports and got him into wrestling and football. And a few years later, he's like the world champion. He went through divorces, he got his troubles, but now he is so thankful and so faithful to God, because now him and that little girl who were at the orphanage together, they blended their families together, and they're the happiest married couple you can imagine.
Wow. That's incredible.
And
That's
he
incredible.
wears that big cross. Yeah, I mean, I last time I was with him, he had the room above me, and like 4 in the morning, I'm hearing all this banging because he works out like an animal still.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
so fit.
Man.
And Ken, he's the same. Randy Couture's the same way.
Mhm.
All these people we're getting to work with, they're super extreme in what they've done, and as extreme as they are, they're also that faithful.
Yeah, that's
The
incredible.
same correlation, like
That's awesome.
extreme in whatever you do, you're also that faithful.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense because I think when you've experienced so much hardship in your life and then you realize the only peace you're gonna find is through Christ. I mean, you can look everywhere you want, but eventually you're gonna have to come back to him or find him because you won't find it without him in your life. And I didn't know that about Ken Shamrock. I grew up watching him in UFC and then when he was in WWE and all that. And yeah, that dude was unreal back in the day. So I remember the Lions Den, he had that training center. Yeah, my brother and I used to watch Ken Shamrock all the time.
So the people I work with and Ken, we're putting the Lions Den back on TV now.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
because he was my co-host, and he was watching how I train the people, and he
Yeah.
said, "That's what we did in the Lions Den." Yeah.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
where can our viewers go and check out some of your shows? Like what platform or where can they watch those shows?
It's on Hulu and Amazon and all
Okay.
those normal platforms. I think YouTube might be the easiest way though.
Okay.
And it's on my website. I have a website
Mhm.
that's US Frogman with two N's.com. And the producer and director is AmericanStories.com. And the shows are all on there too.
Okay. And I'll put all that in the description here on our episode so folks can just click it and go and watch all those programs. Well, tell us about the Navy SEAL playbook. That's your current book, right?
Yep, that is Steve. Uh, I,
I
I
had to do it, man. You knew I was going to do
yeah,
it.
no, I know because I'm definitely not here to try to sell books or promote
I know
anything.
you're not. I know you're not.
But the Navy SEAL playbook, it wasn't my idea actually. It was the publishers and Hatherley Publication. And the publisher asked me, and I've done books with them before. This is my 24th book. I've written 24 books, and I really wasn't interested in writing another book. So they asked me if I would be interested in writing a book to help Navy SEAL ethos, philosophies, and good habits to come to the business world. And I just happened to be working with some bankers at the time doing just that with banking associations in Texas, Minnesota, and a couple other states. So they had these bank associations and they asked Naval Special Warfare for some assistance. What can we take from your community, bring it to our community that would help? So we had this commander who helped him out. He retired, then I took over when he left off. And it was really very rewarding and enlightening too, because what you think of when you're growing up in the teams that's leadership, that's how a team is run. Everyone's focused on the mission, but you kind of come out of it thinking when you get around all these other organizations, that's not how a lot of people think. And so the Navy SEAL playbook, it doesn't give away any secrets, of course, tactics, techniques, procedures,
Mhm.
anything like that, but it talks about leadership and it talks about having an example or a mentor and also training the people under you. You want them someday to take your place. And what traits that you see and the people you believe in to be the greatest leaders, what would you like to adapt from them? And and also that we all have this bubble we live in. We step out of it, it's a little uncomfortable, but persuade your teammates to step out of it, push the boundaries, and allow them to make mistakes, because in mistakes is where we learn.
Mhm.
And that there's no I in team, like Michael Jordan famously said. But if you do what our great leaders did, and that is not worry a thing about themselves, you go to work and you know that that boss there, the commander or the team leader or the XO or the CO, whoever he might be or she might be, you know that person has the team as their primary focus. All you want to do is give to that
Mhm.
person, because that person's given only to the team. And if everybody thought like that and everybody just took care of each other, then you don't have to worry about yourself because you're being taken care of. And so I know your dad knows this, but we had a guy in blue team and he was our team leader. And he was one of these people. He wasn't, he was enlisted who went officer. So he wasn't, a Naval Academy grad. But
Mustang.
that's right. He was one of the guys though. He's a guy we all loved. And everybody wanted to be around him. But when you were around him, he was the highest ranking. He made you feel like you were really needed. Like, Steve, what can we do? What I need some help. Can you take care of this part of the mission? Can you take part of this part of the planning here? And he really and he made you feel like you just want to give everything to him. So he was our leader. He did a parachute jump and he broke his leg, and his leg, the bone dug into the dirt, and he got a bad infection. And so he hated that because he was a team lead and he had to go to the hospital all the time to deal with these infections. Finally, he said, just cut it off, cut the leg
Mm.
off. And the last time I saw him, we were doing a 100-mile bike ride together and he did it with his prosthetic leg.
Wow.
Yep. But then he got promoted all the way up the ranks to commanding officer of SEAL Team 6,
No kidding.
which everyone else is a Naval Academy grad. He
Yeah.
went up, and he was commanding officer when bin Laden was,
Oh,
shot.
okay. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Wow.
he's most historical
That's
besides
incredible. Yeah, that's incredible.
but he was just one of the guys. He wasn't somebody you felt like, "Oh, no, here's the boss,"
Mhm.
or, "What the heck? What's he doing that for?" He's all about himself. He's all about being around the flagpole. All that guy wants is to get promoted to admiral or something. Not a word like that was ever said about this man. That man was all about the team, and we all knew it and felt it. You'd go into work, he'd be the first one there. You'd leave, you'd feel guilty because 'cause he'd still be there.
Yeah.
And he was a family man, he was a faithful man, and he wasn't one of those reckless guys who went out all the time and, like and I'll have to admit, I was for a while thinking, "Live for the day," you don't know
Mhm.
if tomorrow's gonna come, let's live for the day. He had it together from day one, and so there's examples like that in the book about people
Okay.
like and what you can learn from those guys, and
So
ladies.
real leader right there. That's an incredible story. Do you have speaking of stories, do you have a story that you can share with us? Your favorite 160th story that is okay to share that won't compromise anything? I gotta ask you that, man. So
My favorite 160th story?
yeah.
Some of my I can't say
Well,
because my
I
favorite
know,
ones I
I know.
can say.
Yeah, well, if there's one you can say, but
Okay. Okay, I can say one here. There was a time when we were out on an island, and I'll just keep the island vague, okay?
there we go. Okay,
We were
okay.
doing, jungle warfare, and we all had our weapons, and we were starving out on that island, and, one of the guys had a machine gun. He talked to one of the pilots. He said, "There's a herd over there. Can we, go?" So, they brought a chainsaw, and, we had steak for the next 2
Nice.
weeks. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's
And that's the
awesome.
cleanest one I can say. Also, I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
say,
yeah.
when we're in Puerto Rico once, the helicopter was full and we're just sitting on the pods and the pad. And I remember we're sitting there and the pilots are flying so low, you're just barely touching the water with your feet.
It's
Just
incredible.
having a but
That's
those
great.
guys, I mean, I was up in Denali, up and climbing Denali, and those are some great pilots, those bush pilots. And I
Mhm.
always heard TF-160 or the bush pilots are the best.
Yeah.
After coming back from Alaska, I was thinking those guys are really good, but TF-160 is still the best in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. They have they do a family day, every summer, and, it's really fun because 'cause we're just on the range watching them do gun runs for, like, a couple hours, and so 3 3 years ago, my son, he's 7 now, he got to call in a fire mission while his uncle was flying. So he talked to his uncle on it was really cool, man. And I've got 2 nephews that are younger than my son. They were part of that too. So the 160th does a great job, at least Dave's unit with the families, man. It's just they really make you feel kinda part of it, they're really good for morale. Because when we were growing up, we didn't get to do that stuff. We didn't get to go. Of course, they didn't exist, so we didn't get to, we could go see dad at work, but it wasn't like it is now. But that was a really neat experience for my
They're
son.
still unsung heroes. They're the
They
unsung
are. Yeah,
heroes.
they are. And, I've actually had a couple on the show, both Black Hawk guys. My dad flew Black Hawk, so that's been kinda cool, but, yeah, they definitely don't a lot of folks don't even know who they are still. I've met several guys that have been in the military that don't know who they are, so it's kinda interesting, especially with, Bin Laden raid and then obviously Black Hawk Down. I mean, that's that whole movie, if you watch it, you kinda I would think you'd figure it out, but yeah, they're still, kinda in the shadows for lack of better words, but I think that's how they like it.
A very, very good friend who was a Black Hawk pilot during, Black Hawk Down
Oh,
that
wow.
fell up in, Mogadishu. And, he's one of the most faithful men you'll ever meet in your life. And you'll see him with a cross everywhere he goes. And the first time he came over my house and he told me he was a Black Hawk Down pilot, and he was the pilot when the Ranger went on the fast rope and fell and went to his
Mhm.
death. He was the pilot during that,
Okay.
and he still cries when he talks about it.
Wow.
Yeah, he was there for that. We only had a couple handful of SEALs in that. Our commanding officer, Eric Olson, was there, and then a couple of our snipers went for that, but that was it.
Yeah, Elvis Wilcox was my dad's co-pilot, and he was on the bird with, Shugart and Gordon, I believe.
Boy.
Yeah. No, 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 I'm sorry. They were on a different bird. They went in to go, to that crash site. But yeah, he was dad's co-pilot growing up. So, yeah, it's a small world, man, small community for sure. But it's neat to hear your perspective because, you know, growing up, you hear the green side of the house, but it's cool to get to
Yeah.
talk with you because you're the first, DevGru SEAL I've had on the show. So,
Well, when when the helicopter crashed, Randy's wife, uh, a good friend of mine, adopted. Well, he didn't adopt her, but he took care of her and took care of her family. We were in the CIA together, and he pretty much put her under his umbrella. They were good friends in Delta Force,
yeah,
but she didn't have to go without. He was there from day one with her.
that's really amazing. Yeah. It was hard to watch that movie. I saw it in
Yeah.
college, and it was hard to watch it,
Oh
but,
yeah, shoot, yeah,
um Don, I wanted to ask you, we could change the subject a little bit. Did you ever do the Eco Challenge? Remember that? Remember that race?
yeah. I
I used to
remember.
watch it on TV. Yeah, I used to watch it on TV in high school.
Well, if you get a certain Wall Street Journal edition, you'll see the founder of the Eco Challenge's picture, Mark Burnett,
Yeah, that's the
and my
Survivor,
picture.
right? The
Yep,
oh, okay, yeah, 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 nice.
both of us on there. It's a long story, but
Okay.
in a nutshell, we were the two of the guys in the US who created adventure racing. We both get credit for it.
Okay.
He was
Okay.
before I was, but
Yeah,
what
okay.
happened, this race called the Raid Gallois, it was the toughest human endurance competition in the world. I've done that 4 times, and Mark did it. He did it twice with some SEAL buddies of mine. He didn't finish either time, and he wasn't really an athlete. But what he took that Raid Gallois package. He took out the cover and slipped an Eco Challenge cover into it, sold it to Discovery Channel for $1.2 million. And the Eco Challenge, he went to court for it, but he tried putting the Raid Gallois, me, and this other race in New Zealand called Southern Traverse, the other 3 big races, out of business. He had a bad mark
Hmm,
on his name during those years.
okay.
Things changed though. Things changed. He tried his best to put us all out of business. Rudy Bosch, who you probably know
I
of.
remember, yeah, I remember him.
Well, Rudy was the first guy on Survivor,
Yep.
and Rudy was working with me on my SEAL Adventure Challenge that I put together for the Navy.
Wow, yeah.
Rudy and I worked together, and Rudy said, "Don, your buddy Burnett," he called me, and the whole adventure racing world knew Mark was trying to put me out of business and 2
Mm.
other races. And I said, "Rudy, you got to go for it. You got to go for it." He says, "No, not after what he's doing to you guys." I said, "Just try it, Rudy. Just try it." So he reluctantly went out to California, and he said, "Yeah, Mark said I did okay in the interview. I should come back for another interview." I said, "You got to do it. You got to do it." Well, Rudy's the one who made that show so popular.
That's the only reason I watched it because he was a SEAL. That's the only
Yeah,
reason I watched the show. Yeah.
and I have to say something for Rudy. Rudy was probably the SEAL I respect more than all the other SEALs I respect so much, but he was at the top of the list. And that show didn't even talk about who he really was. If people really knew the great man he was, I think that show would have done much better. But Rudy is the man who made that show so popular.
Think if I remember correctly, he was on a show called Combat Missions, and
Yeah,
Scott Helveston was on that show too.
absolutely. They
Yeah.
called him Rudy Bosch, the Colonel.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, no,
that's
I'm
right.
sorry. I think I think they called him a colonel
Yeah,
instead of
he was in charge of it, if I
yeah.
remember right. It was a long time ago, but I remember
Well, in the
watching that.
Navy, we don't even have colonels.
No,
That's how
I know. Yeah, it's dumb.
yeah.
That's Hollywood for you, man.
Yep, that was
Yeah.
Mark Burnett's show also.
Yeah, oh, okay, that makes sense, that makes sense, yeah. I think if I'm not mistaken, he's involved in some, Christian films now.
So he got divorced, his house burned down in those, fires, and then he married, and I apologize for not knowing the name, but a very well-known Christian woman who's in the movie business.
Oh, okay.
And the last time I saw a picture of Mark Burnett, he looked like Moses. I mean,
Huh,
he changed.
yeah.
And, but he's been very much into, Christian movies now, and the left is very upset with him because he created The Apprentice as well, and The
Mm,
Apprentice is what made Donald Trump well
Yeah.
known to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they say, well, if it wasn't for The Apprentice, Donald Trump wouldn't be president right now. So the left is all upset about
That's
him.
funny. That's funny. Well, do you have a like a motto or a creed or a favorite scripture that you like to share with the audience?
I wish I do have one thing. It's not a scripture. It's it's based off of a triathlete, the top triathlete in the world, gave me some advice when I was young. And he said he just works out every day of the year. So I worked out every day of the year for over 20 years. But after a while, after all these questions, after all these decades, people say, how do you become a SEAL? How do you become Delta Force? How do you become a mountain climber? So I took Dave's advice, the triathlete, instead of working out every day of the year, I added to it. And I just have 4 things to do. And I'll tell people, I love saying it to young boys, young women too, young girls. But I say, if every day just wake up and do something to make yourself stronger, you figure it out. Just get
Yeah.
stronger every day. That could be push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, just get stronger. More in the weight room, more with CrossFit, whatever. You just get stronger each and every day. Number 2 is every day, if you want to be a SEAL, every day do something to make yourself faster. Wind sprints, fartleks, track work, but you record it. Don't expect this workout plan on a silver platter. Just get faster each and every day. And number 3, if it is a SEAL you want to become, study the history of SEAL teams. Look what was going on in World War II, underwater demolition teams, swimming in, blowing up the obstacles before Normandy so the landing craft can come in. Look what happened in Korea and Vietnam and the Gulf Wars and all the wars since, and the 90 plus countries we're operating in now. Study that and learn to skydive and learn to dive and get your scuba qualification and learn to shoot long guns and pistols and shotguns. So learn all that, get stronger every day, get faster every day, and get smarter every day by learning something new every day. And most importantly, number 4 is just do something good for somebody. And that could be anybody, but just do good for somebody. It could be the man next door, your mother, your sister, your school teacher. Because if you start this at 12 years old or 15, you can start at any age though. When you go to selection or to bud screening or whatever, you just might be the strongest person there, and you might be the fastest, and you're probably the smartest because you've studied every day to get smarter in whatever you're going after. And most importantly, because you've done so much good for so many people and all you know is doing good things for people, you're the teammate everybody wants because that's a teammate. And you're going to be very sought out after, and you'll make any team much stronger. And then your influence will spread, and it'll be contagious. And people will want to be like you, and they'll want to be strong like you and fast like you. They'll want to know how you did it, and you'll say it's because I was devoted, I was committed, I was focusing on the mission. Never lost sight of it, and that's what I do. And that'd be a good teammate and a good person and a good family person and just a person all around. And I think we need more of that in this world, actually.
That's the best advice I've ever heard for someone that's looking at joining the military. I wish I would have heard that from you back when I was 15. That last part, be a good teammate. That's really that's big, man. I really like that. That's awesome.
Thanks, Steve. I wish I knew that when I was younger, too. Things just would have worked out better, I think.
Well, let's switch gears again. So you mentioned when you were growing up, you like sports and you like music, and you're obviously like training your ass off and you're working out all the time and you've done all these extreme things. What do you do to relax, man? Like, what do you do to like? How do you unwind, man?
I listen to music, actually.
Well, okay. So what kind of music are you into?
Okay, it's kind of funny you asked that. You know who Ted Nugent is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So Ted was big when I was growing up.
Huh.
Stranglehold, I couldn't get
Yeah.
into that song. But before I was ever a SEAL, when I was training to become a SEAL, I met a Navy SEAL. And we worked out together all the time in triathlons.
Mhm.
And he believed in me that I would do well in buds. And he said to me one day, he said, Don, don't ever tell anybody I'm going to give you this. I'm giving you my Navy SEAL trident before you go to buds.
Wow, that's bad
Never.
luck, dude.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I never told anybody. I never told anybody.
Yeah, oh,
He
I
said,
hope
"Don't
not.
tell
Yeah, yeah.
anybody."
Wow.
So I kept it, and it's not the trident I wore, but I kept it, and I kept it. And about 8 months ago, I was with Ted Nugent, and
Nice.
and I wrote a book on shooting many years ago, and someone gave it to him, and Ted Nugent wrote me a nice letter thanking me for the book and all that,
Yeah.
even though I didn't send it to him. And so I wrote him back a letter. But then we were at the gun show together in Vegas, and we were sharing a booth together, him and his wife and his son. And I told him, I said, when you get a moment, I have something to tell you. And I took my gun book I wrote, Modern Day Gunslinger. I put, Ted, I think the world of you. Thank you for being the spokesperson for all of us. Thank you for what you promote. And your music was my soundtrack growing up, especially Stranglehold. And and he's very faithful. He's very religious. He's never had a drug, caffeine, a cigarette, or alcohol in his life. And so I said, because of the influence you've made on me, a Navy SEAL gave me a trident before I was ever a Navy SEAL, and I'd like to pass that on to you. So I gave him my trident. This
No
was about
kidding.
maybe 6 or 8 months ago. And he called me the next day, and I thought it was my girlfriend calling. I'm sorry, my wife. She was my girlfriend before that, but I thought, and I said, "Hey, sweetheart," and it was Ted. He said, "No, this isn't your sweetheart. This is your Uncle Ted. I want to
Nice.
tell you how much that trident means to me." And he stays very close with Marcus Luttrell, lone survivor.
Yeah, yeah.
He said he tries to keep in touch with Marcus at least monthly, and he just loves the military. And I've met some other uh, musicians that I think the world of who love the military. You wouldn't think Joe Walsh and the
Hmm.
Allman Brothers, Greg Allman,
Yeah.
they love the Navy SEALs. They love the military. And Carl Malone, the basketball player,
Yeah.
and just getting to spend time with people like this. Uh, when they find out you're a SEAL, they just like almost like, wow, thanks for doing what you do. And it's the other way around. I feel like saying, well, thank you for doing what you do. You've inspired millions of people by what you do. And it's kind of like, it's just nice. But Ted Nugent was, he got all watery eyed. He put his hand on
Yeah.
my hand when I
That's
gave him.
amazing, man. Yeah, what an
Yeah.
honor. What an honor. That's amazing. Yeah.
And yeah. And I'm not all for everything he says, but I just like that he's pro conservative, pro American,
Mhm.
God, country, family. And that is him and rock and roll. So I just wanted to give it to him.
I thank you for sharing that story. That is incredible that you gave him that trident, man. What an honor. I mean, and especially that it's really nice to hear that he really appreciates that too, because that is a tremendous gift. I mean, man, what an honor.
He loves the military. And law enforcement too. Going through the gun show with him, you would think you were with the most popular person in the world.
Hmm.
Like, he probably is at the gun show,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Ted Nugent, huh? I wouldn't have guessed that. But yeah, that's incredible. Um, I'm gonna share a scripture real fast because I like to do one on every episode. So I've got a good one tonight from the book of Proverbs. This is from chapter 13, verse 20. Be friends with those who are wise, and you will become wise. Choose fools to be your friends, and you will have trouble. And
that's nice.
I think Proverbs is the guide to life, and that's a book that I should have picked up in high school and read and say saved me a little bit of trouble through adulthood. But I think what it's saying is make sure you know who your friends really are and surround yourself with like-minded individuals that you can grow from, learn from, and fellowship with. And not saying you can't be friends with other people, but just you don't need to be put in situations where they might jeopardize your career or your family or your health, whether it's doing drugs or whatever. So I think that's a good scripture, and with the SEAL teams and brotherhood, I think that really fits in nicely with our discussion tonight.
Hmm. Yeah, Steve, my hat's off to you. I love what you do and
Thank you.
your program and how you started off and the way you finish your programs. That's just fantastic.
Thank you. And it's really an honor, Don, to sit down and speak with you, especially just growing up and hearing about six and reading the books, and we talked about Marcinko off air, and so it's a real treat to sit down and get to talk with you tonight.
Well, we got to do it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Do you have a Marcinko story you want to share with us that you can share?
He always got the married people and the ones with close girlfriends in trouble because he always in the middle. You're gone all the time,
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden the beepers would go off, and it's the boss. He wants to go out drinking again. He, but the the funniest thing I thought was we were having a SEAL Team 6 reunion with all the commanding officers. And this was like in the mid 90s. I think it was probably later 90s. It actually was. I got there in 85, but I think this was like mid to late 90s. And all the commanding officers, the previous commanding officers, SEAL Team 6, were going to come and we're going to talk to them. I was a warrant officer. So it was for all the officers at the team. And so we were waiting and waiting. We're all excited to see Dick come in. He had his long ponytail, his long beard, and he was rogue for sure. He was rogue because we'd see him all the time at the reunions and everything, but he couldn't get on base because he was a felon.
Oh, that's right.
But the thing with six is when we first started out, it was you guys are kind of like the outcast of the SEALs. You're kind of like the outcast. And Rogue Warrior, Dick Marcinko, the guy who created it, was the outcast of the officers. And so for him not to be able to come to the reunion for the team that he created because he was a felon, it just kind of fit, at the time.
That's 85, huh? I'm pretty sure you probably worked with my father.
I think so. I would say so.
He was in the unit in 85. So yeah, that's I'll have to pick his brain. My dad lives close to where I live, so I'll have to pick his brain when I see him again. Cause I heard some stories growing up, but nothing like real sensitive. Yeah, I know he worked with you guys a lot. That's really cool, man. That's awesome.
Would you thank your dad for his service and
Oh,
thank
yeah,
all he's done for the
100%.
teams?
Percent, yeah, 100%. And another family member works with y'all a lot too. I won't get
Yeah.
into that, but sensitive, but yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's man, it's been an honor, Don. And as we're wrapping up, can you tell our viewers and listeners where they can learn more about you? You mentioned your website earlier. We'll put it in the description. But if they want to connect with you on social media or something like that, you want to throw out the best way to get in touch with you.
Sure. And thanks for that. Probably going to the US Frogman 2ends.com website, and all the social media links are
Okay,
on that. And my phone number's there to call or write, or I return everything, any call or email or text I get.
awesome, awesome. Don, I'm gonna close this out in a prayer, unless you'd like to do it. I'd be
Well,
honored.
I'd love to hear it from you.
Oh, for me, okay,
You'd
all
be
right,
better
all
at
right.
it than I
Well, I
would
don't know
be.
about that, but okay. Well, please bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to sit down with Don tonight and just to hear his powerful story. Lord, I pray that this episode reaches those out there that need to hear it. And I pray, Lord, that they learn more about you, that we make you famous through this episode, Jesus, and that we're so thankful for all that you've done for us, for the sacrifice you made on the cross and dying for our sins. And we're just grateful, Lord. Thank you so much for Don. I pray you'll bless him and his family. And I pray that you'll continue just to be in this podcast and help other men and help other women that are struggling, that need to raise or help us raise awareness for mental health and show the importance of it, to build resilience and to have discipline, but also to put our identity in you, Lord, and to put you first in everything. Thank you again for this opportunity. And it's in your most holy name that I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. It's super nice.
Thank you. Thank you for checking out the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. Be sure to smash that bell at the bottom, subscribe to the channel. I drop new episodes every Wednesday and every Thursday. We're also on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcast. And share this with somebody, because Don has a powerful story. And if you know anybody that's in the age group where they might want to be joining the military, they need to get in touch with him and learn how to train, how to eat, how to just be more resilient, how to have the mindset so when they get to selection or get to buds, they have a better chance of succeeding, because we need more warriors and we need more men that want to put Christ first and serve others, not just themselves. Don, this has been an amazing episode. I'm so grateful for you, brother.
Same here, Steve. Thank you very much. It's really nice to get to know you.
You too. I really appreciate your time, and I'll definitely stay in touch. And I wish you all the best in the future. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And thank you for your service.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you.